I am Mayor Watt. That's ohmTown right there. It's a news aggregation site. It takes a bunch of news, funnels into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. Even my lag to the ingest server and out to y'all it seems to be dramatically high. I just don't know. But I'll continue to investigate once I'm offline. I had people in the house all day, so I couldn't stream earlier. Why do I have something there on my screen? Anyway, I'm going to leave all of this in so you know that the joys of streaming are great. Okay, so the very first article for today is, let me grab my chat and throw it down here so I can post the article. In the last article in today's show is going to be one that's probably going to get people bent out of shape. But I want to talk about it because even though it has something to do with a certain trial, I want to address it, at least from my perspective. I can't talk about the other people, but it just seems like no matter what, there's a fence between one side and another side. Regardless of what the topic is, it seems like there's always one side for and one side against. And maybe I'm not criticizing the fact that there's always somebody picking a side. It just seems that it's always that way. And I'm not quite sure. I'm happy to have discussions about it, but let's get into it. So the very first article is Atlanta Apple Store workers say intimidation has made a fair union vote impossible. Workers at the Cumberland Mall Apple Store will no longer hold a union election in June, according to a report from Bloomberg. The Communication Workers of America, or CWA, it's kind of funny. Communicators with Attitude, CWA. Anyway, the union attempting to organize the store is actually called Communications Workers of America. So it says it withdrew the request to hold an election because, quote, Apple's repeated violations of the National Labor Relations Act have made a free and fair election impossible. And it was supposed to be started on June 2nd. Let's click the link. It'll take us over to The Verge, and Mitchell Clark is the author of this. You know, I should start using graphics more. I don't know. Anyway, the vote, which was scheduled to begin on June 2nd, would have been the first union election at a U.S. Apple store had it gone through. Now the title will go to a store in Maryland, barring the petition also being withdrawn. Workers at the Town Center store are set to start voting in person on June 15th. So in the run-up to the canceled election, Apple has faced allegations of union busting. The firm hired anti-union lawyers and has circulated anti-union messages through store leaders and even video messages from executives. You know, I keep us fighting, and all what happens is it becomes a stronger social movement because you're a $1 trillion company with people making hundreds of millions of dollars in total compensation. And people aren't getting paid adequately when an hour of your 8-hour day is spent having to pay for gas because you have to drive to and from a store in rush hour traffic. And then you have to sleep 8 hours, leaving you only 8 hours out of the day to consume in traffic in both directions, and you have to pay for it. And then the leftover time is, you have to eat food, shower, etc. The work-life balance for what is getting compensated is just wildly out of line for the 21st century. And when you have record profits, more should go to the people that are making it possible. You wouldn't have a business without the workers, and workers wouldn't have work without the business. So it's a partnership. People aren't just cattle. Sure, you can hire more people, but just because they are grateful to have a job doesn't mean that you should abuse them. Give them a livable wage. Give them something that is compensation and not just a pittance. And don't now throw this or that at me about, people are getting paid, No, it's always the minimum. It's always something that is politically oriented to stop the fires from being I'm getting frustrated. The flames being fanned by the employees. It's just barely to get by, folks. That's why unions exist. It's because there's no bargaining power by the individual. So when there is no bargaining power, when there is no ability to counter an offer, because the only other thing is to not have food on the table when there's an opportunity, there's no real meeting of the minds. There's no employee contract, because you basically have to compensate. You have to capitulate, not compensate. You have to capitulate. You have to just say, okay, fine, I'll take whatever you're offering. But with a union, you can stand unionized as a united front. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. When you'd rather hire unions, anti-union lawyers, and circulate anti-union messaging, and even produce things to say unions are bad, people should probably just take that as a sign that unions aren't bad. So it says the NLRB is trying to make these types of meetings illegal. The CWA also filed a complaint with the NLRB alleging that the company has held captive audience meetings in Atlanta to push back against organizing. Yeah. The company has also tried slightly friendlier tactics to make unionizing less enticing for workers. It is reportedly starting wages for workers by $2 an hour. Yeah. Again, this is what I had read previously. This is what I have talked to people about recently. It's basically just a little bit to get, doesn't even touch the 30% margins. Let's continue on. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Marijuana legalization is sweeping the U.S. See every state where cannabis is legal. Marijuana is legal for adults in 19 states and Washington, D.C. Medical marijuana is legal in 38 states and D.C. A slew of states have passed cannabis reform measures in recent months. Pretty fascinating, right? Years and years of marketing that drugs are bad, and now cannabis is marijuana. Just call it what it is. I mean, it's cannabis as well, but marijuana legalization. And you're smoking marijuana. It's also called cannabis. But anyway, you know what? I forgot to say. Did I say that the last article was by Mitchell Clark? Yeah, I did. Okay. Well, anyway, this article is by Jeremy Burke, Cheyenne Gal, and Yeji, I think the name is. I don't know how it's pronounced properly, but Yeji, Jesse Lee. Correct me if I'm wrong. Please correct my phonetic pronunciation of that. So marijuana is legal for adults in 19 states in Washington, and medical marijuana is legal in 38 states. I don't know. It just seems so much. Smoking in general is bad. It's not good for you. It's the opposite of good for you, because you're smoking what amounts to a foreign object. The particles are being inhaled into your lungs. You don't get those back out. And it's worse with cigarettes than it is with marijuana. So if you're going to smoke something, smoke marijuana. Why? Because it's more natural. It doesn't have cigarettes have tar in it to retard the burn rate so that you can sit there and smoke it longer, so that you don't feel like you're being ripped off, because you're getting nicotine. But if you do it too fast, it's wildly expensive. I use wildly quite a bit in my streams, apparently, but it's very, very expensive, and you are inhaling tar and other chemicals designed to retard the burn rate so that you can, quote unquote, enjoy it more. And previous marketing said that it was all healthy, and all of that is BS. And the reason why marijuana even exists is because people started smoking it so that they can get closer to nature. And then some business person said, hey, let's turn that into cigarettes. And ta-da, we made billionaires by leading to killing people. Recently, a slew of populous states have legalized both medical and recreational cannabis, including New York and New Jersey. Rhode Island joined the fold in May. New Jersey was one of 4 states, along with Arizona, Montana, South Dakota, where voters backed recreation cannabis in the November 2020 elections. Populous. Yeah. So, and my research has bore out that the more populous a state is, and a certain population density, leads to a state that is more embracing of a wider spectrum of people. We can talk about that. I did my research. I actually used those metrics to predict what the 2020 election was going to be. Technically, I missed it by 5, but 2 of the states, I actually changed what my data set was. I consciously did it because I wanted to see just how close I could get to an absolute predictive model. Because I tweaked it a little bit, I missed 2 additional states. So in essence, I missed 3 states, and they were ones that I'll have to go back and look to see what it was that flipped. They didn't flip, but they moved it out of alignment with what I had predicted. So I might do it for the 2024 election. We'll see. But it was quite interesting. Their population makes a difference when it's in line with population density. So let's see. This article goes state by state and talks to you about the state in terms of their allowance of recreational and medical marijuana, and if they're going to be changing one way or the other. So that's pretty neat, right? Adults 21 and over can light up in Alaska. In 2015, the northernmost U.S. state made it legal for residents to use, possess, and transport up to an ounce of marijuana, roughly a sandwich bag full, for recreational use. The first pot shop opened that's a mom and pop pot shop. I don't know. Anyway, opened for business in 2016. Pretty amazing. I grew up being told that all of it was bad, okay? And now look, there are harder drugs, but I'd say that marijuana is probably on par with alcohol, both of which are harmful to the body in different ways. But when you get drunk, you don't, you lose your any type of rationalizing and critical thinking limits. You get in a car and you speed, you get into fights and you argue and do stupid things when you get too inebriated. But with pot, you just kind of just sit around. Yeah, there's going to be people that push it too far, but you don't get in your car and race down the road. Maybe somebody will have something anecdotal, but it's my anecdotal take as well. So the next article is, and I haven't seen pot in person for close to 35 years, 30 years, something like that. So good luck to all of you out there that are happen to deal with that. At any rate, the next article is in the Word in Tech. Let me throw that in chat. I'm really exhausted today, and maybe my show is actually pretty telling about it. Anyway, man turning mud into eco-friendly concrete. I don't know, Nanley Landrew has invented a special powder that turns earth into a greener version of concrete. I actually have a project wherein I'm using concrete, and don't autoplay. Bad browser, don't autoplay. So Nanley Landrew has invented a special powder that can turn earth and water into a solid building material. It's inspired by houses where he grew up in West Africa. It's got a far lower carbon footprint than concrete, and it's about to be used in a new apartment block. Well, I want to know what that is. Find out more by listening to the People Fixing the World podcast. So I have not listened to it, but I am going to go and hunt it down, and we can learn about it together. And that's not true, actually. I won't be able to do it live on the stream. One second. Had to cough there. Well, anyway, go and check out this podcast, Fixing the World podcast. Yeah, there's no author for this little snippet, but I figured that it would be interesting. I think that anything that makes concrete more eco-friendly, it gives off a lot of CO2, apparently. I have a project that actually uses concrete. I'm on the verge of bringing it to market, but it's not something as, fixing the world kind of a thing. It's just a little kitschy project that people might enjoy having. But if we could use something that turns it into a more eco-friendly concrete and throw it into 3D printers, then you could 3D print house after house after house. Just lay down track and move the printer down the line and keep feeding the hopper, and it'll print house after house after house. And I think that's pretty amazing. And we really do need to change what is an acceptable aesthetic for housing. Because right now, I've said this in multiple past podcasts, past episodes of ohmTown Daily News, which is the problem with houses right now, single family houses and even apartment complexes, is that in certain locations under high winds, all that has to happen is the roof needs to be pulled up a little bit and the sides of the walls fall over. And you could add hurricane straps to it and whatever you want, but eventually it'll all just break down under the stress of hurricane or tornado, and other events. Like you can just start a fire in a conventional house, and eventually the reason why we have drywall is to limit that burn rate. But if you have an all concrete house, your walls won't spontaneously combust with a fire that's inside it. But a conventional house, the drywall will eventually just shatter under the heat, and then the timber framing will catch on fire, and you basically have a giant barbecue. Well, with 3D printed houses that use something like eco-friendly concrete that this person is putting together, hell yes, you can have very robust, wind completely resistant. Well, it would be impervious to wind because the wind will just roll right over the concrete and not lift the roof off and throw it across the countryside. So maybe everybody can work together and start getting 3D printed houses. And the only thing that's stopping 3D houses from being done is building code in old ways. Lots of money. And the aesthetic. Some people really don't like the aesthetic because it's a different material. It's a different style. It has to be, because it's not timber framing with overhangs that are designed to keep water from hitting the walls. That's the only reason why you have overhangs, eaves, and stuff like that on your roof. It's because it can't handle the weight of water and rain. Let's start pushing. Let's get everybody involved and make a social movement to start pushing for acceptance of 3D printed concrete houses. We can make them pretty. You can stain the concrete, or you can just stain it later afterward. You can do so much more in terms of building with a concrete house. The only thing you have to worry about is the air inside. And we can manage that. It's the 21st century, folks. So let's go on to the next article. This next article, and if you're interested in this kind of stuff, happy to talk about it some more. I prefer to go through all of the news and then we can talk about various elements afterward, because this actually gets turned into a podcast. So you can just go to Apple or Google Play or Spotify and do a search for ohmTown and it'll pull it up. You can go over to YouTube and watch this show over on YouTube after I'm done here. Eventually, every night I upload the show to YouTube as well. Well, anyway, let's go on to the next article, and it's the new Loki handheld, runs Windows and starts at $299. The maker of the Odin Android handheld is releasing a lineup of what it calls the most affordable portable Windows gaming consoles yet via Lilliputting, or Lilliputing, because it's about little computers. The cheapest of the bunch starts at $299, $100 less than the 64 gigabyte I said Stream Deck, and gosh, it's so close. It's a Steam Deck. Anyway, they announced it in the news, in a YouTube video and a series of posts on Instagram. I don't go to Instagram. Anyway, this article is over at The Verge, and it's by Emma Roth, and there you go. Looks like a Switch, looks like a Steam Deck, but it runs Windows apparently natively, and it's not getting shoehorned in. The Alder Lake version of it is $299, and the Ryzen 5 6600U is $499. This looks like the first edition of it, for all accounts, as far as I know. And I know that there's new AMD chips and new AMD tech right around the corner. So I don't know if I would jump on this right away. But I love little computers. I'm really into tablets. I've had some, well, I don't like aging myself. But is this? Yeah, my shirt says I'm older than the internet. So there's some truth to that. At any rate, they announced in the news and YouTube and a series of posts on Instagram, giving you a look at what you can expect for looks, tech specs, and pricing. And this article over at The Verge talks about it some more, and they link to the video. The $799 Loki Max features an upgraded AMD Ryzen 7 6800U chip and 512 gigabytes of storage. And there's never enough storage. Everybody thinks, 256 will be enough, but then they end up using cloud stuff for a lot of things. I tend to manage with 256 only because I don't put everything on there, and I'm very cognizant of that. But sometimes you want to just throw a bunch of movies on there, a bunch of audio, but you can put a lot on something that has 512 gigs of storage. I've put on a 1 terabyte M.2, I've put every episode. So I'm at 149 episodes of the stream here on Twitch on an M.2, 1 terabyte M.2, and every episode of the podcast. So there's an audio version of it and a video version of this show. So I've done almost 150 episodes. I think tomorrow will be episode 150. Yeah, I think so. Nope, I just looked. So tomorrow will be episode 149. This episode is 148, and it's for May 28th, 2022. So if you're curious about all of the rest of these episodes, go over to YouTube. That's where it's stored long term. You can also look up the podcast because there's that audio version too. So let's continue on. I got a bunch more articles. I think I've got 20 altogether again. The next article brings us back around to the old McDonald's exit from Russia, and I had basically predicted that they're all going to be sold, and because of the brand, I talked about it a couple of days ago, that McDonald's bowed out, and if somebody was smart, they would buy them and then use the same supply chain that's already in Russia. And that's exactly what happened. Somebody decided, hey, I'm going to buy all of the franchises for McDonald's. Apparently they wanted to call it McDuck. And I guess that got ruled out, and now it might get called Fun and Tasty. Yeah, all right. Maybe it loses something in the translation. So if anybody is from Russia and watching this stream and they find out about what the name of it is in the true name in Russia, whatever it might be, come back and talk to me about it. So McDonald's in Russia has submitted a list of names, patent office filings seen by RBC show. Businessman Alexander Gover has agreed to buy all McDonald's restaurants in Russia. McDuck, a slang term for McDonald's in Russia, has already been trademarked by the U.S. company. All right. That's always weird. Somebody else comes up with the name in the context of your business, and you, I guess they use a patent office, but it's a patent and trademark office here in the States. So it's actually a trademark, not a patent. Anyway, let's click the link, give credit where credit is due. And it's over at Business Insider by Ryan Hogg. And let's scroll down and see if there's anything else interesting in this. McDonald's said on May 20th it had sold all of its restaurants to local businessman Alexander Gover, who agreed to continue paying its 62,000 employees as part of the agreement. And this is something that I've been talking about since this invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which is there are a lot of people that simply just want to hang out here on Twitch that live and work and thrive in Russia. And because of a particular very narrow number of people that said, yeah, let's go charge into Ukraine, everybody is suffering because the rest of the world said, no, we're not going to allow that without repercussions by the rest of various powerful countries. And so sanctions kicked in, and everybody in Russia is suffering at a much greater level than the people that are profiting from this, because the regular Joes like you and me are not profiting from this endeavor of an invasion into Ukraine. In fact, many people are suffering greatly because of it. So, I don't know. I'm not too fond of the decision, but I'm not the one that's running countries. So let's continue on to the next article. The New York Post, it says, cookout, cash out, Memorial Day barbecue cost surges over inflation. So surging inflation means Americans will face steep bills at the grocery store while stocking up their fridges with Memorial Day food and snacks this weekend. We had people over today, and I can tell you that it's expensive, but depending on what you get, and if you do like a potluck kind of a thing, then the burden is a little bit lighter. Luckily, we didn't stay long enough for anything really to, food and all of that stuff didn't take place. But we were all, it was basically just hanging out. Now, if you're trying to put barbecue together and drinks and whatever else you want to throw in there, man, it can get really expensive. $6 a gallon, depending on where you are, just to drive somewhere. It's getting crazy, this inflation. This article is over at Market Watch by Thomas Barabi. And let's see if they have any numbers here. The price of steaks, a Memorial Day favorite, was up 11.8 through April compared to the same month last year. Uncooked ground beef, 14.8%. So what were your raises for your cost of living increases from your employer? 1.5%, maybe 3%. Yeah, not even close. And again, I'll say it because I've been saying it every time something from the news clicks in regards to inflation or business or economics. And that is, when you peel back the layers of the onion, what you see is the cost of fuel is the leading indicator for what your inflation is going to be, because it is a raw resource drawn from the ground. That's the only, there isn't a precursor to oil and fuel, right? Oil and natural gas, there is no precursor to it. It is the precursor, and then it's refined. But those companies during a recession saw record profits. And then the war happened between, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia exacerbated it because somebody said, oh, look, conflict, let's start jacking up the price. This is all about profiteering off of that conflict and recovering losses because of the pandemic. And now all of these employers are saying you have to drive back to work. And then they're not saying, hey, you know what? We see that the inflation is causing 15% markup for food. Let's give you a 15% pay raise. Nope, that's not how it's working. Everybody's making record profits on the beginnings of the supply chain, and everybody else is suffering. And it's going to lead to great turmoil, great problems. It's still coming too. Summer's going to start increasing it. And then we're going to be at the end of the year and things start changing, right? They swap out fuel, different type of formulas from summer to winter. They're going to say, oh, well, we have to raise the prices because we're doing the swap out again. Well, it's all profiteering. It's all greed. It's all consolidation of wealth. So let's continue on. I don't want to spend too much time on any one article. Again, if you have questions or comments, feel free to throw them in chat. I'm happy to talk about this stuff with greater fidelity. If you have questions, I can certainly answer them. Hopefully. This is a riff off of the last article, and that is gas prices hit a new record high of $4.60. It doesn't apply to everybody everywhere, right? This $4.60 seems cheap to some places. Like everything in Europe is basically liters, and they pay more per liter than we do per gallon, but they have to consume more liters per gallon, and when you add it all up, they pay more. Now, I don't know about the level of consumption. I have lived in Europe, but everything there was a lot tighter packed than here in the States. So, it typically doesn't take 6 hours to get from one side of a state. Well, I should say in Europe, it doesn't take 6 hours to get from one side of a country to another. Here in the United States, to get from from one side of Texas to the other, it's like 6 hours. And so all of that fuel is just kind of burnt doing nothing. At least when you're driving through much of Europe, there's sights to see and there's more places to pull over and actually enjoy your day. But man, some states are just dry white toast. That said, I don't want to pay $6 a gallon, and I don't want everybody else to have to pay these prices just to pay CEOs millions of dollars. And I've talked about that stuff too. CEOs are making millions of dollars and they're getting bonuses because the stakeholders are getting profits. And the business is becoming more profitable, even during a pandemic. Meanwhile, all of the workers are being violently turned away when they're trying to form a union so that they can get a better work-life balance, get better benefits, get better pay. There's just inequality, and I think that more people need to just start standing up for themselves. That's why we have the Great Resignation. That's why we have people deciding that they're just not going to go back to work. They're going to find something else to do. And honestly, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. Maybe they're streaming. So let's click the link and it'll take us over to the Business Insider site again and Ryan Hogg. And depending on where you are, that $6 is true. So $6.59 for Supreme. If you've got a certain kind of car, then you get Supreme. But for the most part, in California, it's about $6, $6.30. Really depends on where you are. And so when something says it's a record high of $4.60, that's the average. Some states, because of their location, their prices are really low because they're so easily supplied. But the cost of living in California is dramatically high. And population is dense. There's all kinds of rules and regulations and stuff like that. And so $6.60 for that premium is really expensive. And I've actually gotten smaller cars and more efficient cars. Every time I had to get to the point where I was spending like $20 to fill up my car. And now you just can't do it. You end up spending $50 to fill up your car, regardless of how small or efficient it is. Data from AAA shows the average price of regular unleaded reached $4.60 a gallon on Saturday, a new record and 51% higher than the same time last year. Yeah, see, it's profiteering. We were all in the crap together during the pandemic, but you and I don't have the ability to tell everybody, okay, if you want me to remain your employer, you have to give me a 51% increase in my salary. You might go somewhere else, but then you lose your seniority. You lose any of the benefits that you might have had. You basically start over. You might be able to get a pay raise somewhere in there, but there's a lot of starving people that want money. That might take your gig. So let's continue on to the next article. That one is pretty straightforward. So the next article is, let's take a look at an 88-foot yacht concept designed to imitate a luxury sports car with touches from Lamborghini. Naval Yachts unveiled a concept yacht created to look like a luxury car. It's 88 feet long, called the LXT-88. Features a jacuzzi and can go as fast as 42 knots. This is an article by Grace K. If they pronounce it Key, I'm sorry. Anyway, looks like a speedboat with apparently a jacuzzi in the front. Sure. But it's a concept boat. It says created by Turkey-based Naval Yachts. Looks cool. Looks like a Lamborghini Huracan. But a Hurricane LP 610-4 Spider. Okay. Cool. It being a concept, I don't think that they're going to throw a price on here, but I'm going to scroll real fast. You can look at the pictures as I'm scrolling real fast. Maybe they've got an estimated price. So, Technomer released a cruiser in collaboration with Lamborghini for 3.5 million. So, it's not that the Naval Yachts is not the first design studio and shipbuilder to create a concept inspired by a luxury vehicle. So maybe it's $3.5 million. I don't know. We shall see when it actually releases, huh? Okay, well, that's it for that article. I'm going to continue on. I'm about halfway through, maybe more than halfway through. This person decided that they were going to order a pizza with their mind on the new Domino's Stranger Things app, and despite some glitches, it worked and was really fun. So Domino's has a Stranger Things app because season 4 of Stranger Things dropped. I've actually been watching it while people are. I've been prepping for this and doing other work and watching Stranger Things 4 here in the background. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Domino's. But it says Domino's and Netflix released an app to celebrate season 4 of Stranger Things, which premiered Friday. The app reads facial gestures to help you order pizza with your mind, like Eleven, the telekinetic character in the show. I'm not going to talk about Stranger Things 4, other than the fact that um, there was talk about season 4 having Vecna, the curse of Vecna. Maybe we'll see the eye and the hand of Vecna. It's from D&D, which is, they've always had a D&D tilt to it, like the Demogorgon. But this one is like you reach into the bag of D&D and have to dig way to the bottom of it. Very popular critter in D&D in terms of lore. But to have that actually show up, I hope that they do more of this. But for some reason, I think that Stranger Things season 4 is going to be like the biggest beast that they're going to confront. But I don't know. I just started watching it. I don't know if there's going to be a season 5 or 6 or 7. There might be a season 5 just to kind of close it out. But it's a lot of fun to watch. And it says that it's rated for 14-year-olds. But man, I don't see this thing being approachable. But maybe it's just me. At any rate, let's click the link. Takes us over to Business Insider again. Today's been a busy day for them. Other news organizations didn't have anything that wasn't related to certain events that I just don't want to talk about today. So it's them reading my facial expressions would probably lead to me eating or ordering donuts through Domino's, which probably wouldn't turn out too well. This article is by Gabriel Bienes, I think. Levitating pizza boxes with my mind. At any rate, they released an app. I haven't looked at it yet. You might want to go and check it out. And I'm on episode 4, I think, right now. So it references bike riding as a big theme in the show, said Kate Trumbull, Domino's executive and Stranger Things fan who worked on the promotion. Trumbull said that the video was so realistic, fans asked if it was a deleted scene from the show. She also hinted that the newest season, now streaming, there will be a theme around pizza. Wow. So they gave it a try. Give it a try yourself. This is not a plug for Domino's. I have no relationship with any of the people that I talk about. And when I do, I'll let you know. So let's go on to the next article. This government lab in Idaho is researching fusion, the holy grail of clean energy, as billions pour into the space. Fusion is getting billions in private investment. Interest from young scientists. Here's a look at how the government is researching fuel cycles and safety. Let's click the link. It'll take us over to CNBC, and Catherine Clifford is the author of this article. They always have key points, which I really appreciate. Masashi Shimada, a lead fusion scientist at the government's Idaho National Laboratory, has been working in the industry for more than 2 decades and has said the way that scientists talk about fusion has changed markedly in recent years as billions of dollars from private investors have gone into startups working to commercialize fusion. Shimada's team researches the production of tritium, one of the primary fuels that fusion startups working to commercialize fusion are pursuing. Also, Shimada's team works on safety protocols for working with tritium. So they have a picture here, and it says this is a close-up view of an X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy system being used at the Idaho National Laboratory, measuring surface chemistry on a potential candidate material to use for fusion. I would love for fusion to come into existence, particularly cold fusion, so that it's seen as safer and not as costly. But it's been promised here and there, and things pop up and then they disappear. I just don't know what to think. Are we ever going to get to that point? Maybe we will. There's a whole bumper crop of new young scientists working in fusion, and they're inspired. If you want to talk to young people, if you talk to young people, they believe in fusion. They are going to make it. They have a very positive, optimistic mindset, Shimada said. Let's talk to them after 30 years and see. So studying the tritium supply chain is a portion of this article. And in many cases, the fuels for fusion reaction are deuterium and tritium, which are both forms of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. Let's see. Let's hope that it happens. I can't imagine sitting that close to a device that is, I guess, interacting with the possibility of fusion. I'm kind of spacey about this because I haven't looked that much into it, other than the fact that I've grown up hearing people say we're right around the corner of fusion, and cold fusion at that. I don't see it happening in my lifetime, but here's to trying. Fundamental research, folks. You can't get that. You can't do fundamental research unless you have an education. Otherwise, you end up basically redoing what everybody else is doing, and you don't get any forward motion. But with an education, all of that learning, we stand on the shoulders of giants, as the statement goes, and you avoid making the previous mistakes because it's drilled into you. Research paper, research paper, research paper. You learn everything about it so that you can not make the same mistakes or waste time researching something that has already been shown to not work. The next article is in the Band to Bezel channel, introducing the new Blue Bronze Norcane Freedom 60 GMT 40 millimeter. This is about a watch, so that's what the show Band to Bezel is all about, watches. In just over a couple of years, Norcane, I guess it's pronounced, has demonstrated a rather impressive coherence in its collections and also quite a rapid expansion. From the beginning, the brand even announced partnering with Kinesi, a renowned Swiss movement manufacturer. Let's click this thing because I'm curious. Such a short paragraph made me envision some supreme quality. So this is an article over at monochrome-watches.com, or more easily referred to just as Monochrome. And it's by Bryce Gouliard. So that is a shocking face on the watch. Just brilliant blue, almost iridescent. I mean, it's just an amazing color. if you're curious about this kind of stuff, definitely go over to monochrome-watches.com and check it out. I love looking at the pictures. They're always really neat. And I'm always curious about the back of the watch and the movement itself. I love seeing the individual parts. And if you don't ever see this, what it comes down to is every watch pretty much has the same parts. What changes is the industrial design that's involved, and it's always artistry. I absolutely love the engineering that goes into these watches. So let's see here. The watch, it's presented in Swiss francs, but I'm pulling up a exchange rate calculator. So it's a 4,000 US dollar watch, but it's in Swiss francs of 3,790, and it's going to be limited to 300 pieces. Impossible for me to own, but I just can't justify any of that price for a watch. The most expensive watch that I own, that I've purchased, is an Apple Watch, and it's just your standard Apple Watch. I've even replaced my original stainless with one that's less expensive. Okay, so let's continue on with the next article. The next article is in the Hedge Ideas channel. Hello, Brildine. How are you? You've just won an eBay bid on 3 Marcasite watches for Christmas gifts. When did you come into my channel? My goodness. See, I just don't know who is actually here. That is always frustrating. Let me see something. Because I'm in here as me, and I'm in here as Mayor Watt. So there's the ohmTown account, and then there's Mayor Watt. And I see you, but I also see like 11 other people. But my counter says that I have way few. Interesting. So, well, thanks for talking to me. Now I know you're here, so happy to talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah. So what models did you get? Do you know off the top of your head? Those are always like really brilliant. And depending on how well taken care of they are, they're amazing to look at. So I'm sure people will enjoy it. And there's so much lag. I feel like there's so much lag. Earlier today, when I first spun up the show, I was having a horrible time connecting to the ingest server, and it was dropping out and saying that it was unstable, like the host. And I ended up doing all kinds of stuff to try and fix it. And so far, it's been doing okay. Well, I hope everybody enjoys it. There's a guy that I watch, Wristwatch Revival, or just Watch Revival. I think if you do a search for him on YouTube, he takes all of these watches apart, and it's giving me an idea. I love fiddling around with stuff, and so I might end up buying some watches and tearing them apart just to see the innards and cleaning them and stuff like that. So yeah, hey, there you go. Get them refurbished and cleaned up. And they're really kind of impervious to damage unless somebody is very forceful with it and intentionally destructive. They might get dirt inside, but then you just clean it all off and ta-da, brand new watch. So this here the next article is in Hedge Ideas. And it says, an entrepreneur built a platform for diverse workers to share honest reviews of their employers. It's registered over 5,000 reviewers from companies like Google and Deloitte in its first year. I used to have a reputation site, and it was not well received, but it was about people, not businesses. I can tell you from experience, though, that usually reputational sites are not well received and end up in litigation. So, um, Inside Voices is a platform to review employers and how they handle diversity and inclusion. Founder Iko Sani Thomas opted for organic growth on TikTok rather than building or seeking VC funding, which is awesome. Minimizing the number of voices that might be muddying the waters in terms of guidance and what might be a value to the service is always good. Retaining ownership is always good. Sandy Thomas spoke with Insider about what he learned as a Black employee in the corporate world. Gosh. You know, so many people have to deal with so much stuff that, and the people that need to go through training to become aware of certain institutionalized processes that marginalize certain people. And I'm not talking about just Black employees, but there's a whole gamut of people that are somewhat marginalized to various degrees. And the people that need to learn the lesson don't pay attention to anything having to do with ethics or training or anything. So they say, this is a problem that I've dealt with throughout my career, not just lack of diversity, but also companies having false reputations. But I'm going to guarantee you that this site will eventually land in hot water regarding reputation, because reputation is very open to libel and slander suits, defamation of character of the enterprise itself. You can't just say stuff about a business. They have an identity. They are an entity. They might be guided by a bunch of people, but they are an entity and they have the right to defend their reputation, and that can land people in hot water. And even the employees and the people that are in the company, leadership and so on, they will come after a site like this. So this is an article over at businessinsider.com, and it's written by Catherine Henderson. So I hope that I think it's Iko Sani Thomas is thick-skinned, probably thicker than mine, since he's gone very public, having an article written about him. And so we'll see if anything comes of this as time goes on. Let's see if there's something else that might be in this article. Building a company from scratch. Everybody builds a company from scratch unless you're buying something like a franchise. It's not always easy. Sometimes I'm really amazed by people that start up a company and like they've immigrated to the United States or to some other country, and they spin up a company and they only showed up with like $5 in their pocket. Their drive and ambition and ability to make connections and make it is just really fascinating, because a lot of people have privilege just existing within their home country, and they have ambition to do a business, but they still don't do it for whatever reason, and we all make excuses as to why we don't succeed. But then there's people that don't have a dime to their name, but suddenly they have an amazing pivot and success. I want to know that magic so that I can talk to people about it. It says, for a while, users rolled in slowly, but when Sani Thomas committed to using TikTok and LinkedIn, he finally found his footing. By the way, if you've never really learned anything about TikTok, you haven't looked at it, TikTok has an amazing amount of engagement. Like, The research that I've found is that TikTok has 10 minutes of engagement on average, okay, which is twice as much engagement as the second website, which is Pinterest of all places. I don't even go to Pinterest anymore. It shows up in my search results quite a bit, and I really don't like Pinterest because it is really hyper focused, at least to me. But with TikTok, it's zero friction. You turn it on, you it learns what you are interested in by what you are watching. And if you don't ever touch anything on TikTok in the interface, it'll just keep on playing stuff. And that rush is like just juicing mainline into a vein, and you just get it again, a hit again, a hit again. It is amazingly simple, entirely private, owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company. Um, the, they've designed something. Oh, and then to produce is really drop dead simple too. You just turn on your camera, mash the button, and there you go. It's just amazing, and it has a 10-minute limit for its videos, which could change at a moment's notice. Uh, Dramatically easy. If anybody wants to spin up an app to compete with TikTok, they've got a lot of work because they're going to have to beat something that simple with something even more either lucrative or engaging or rewarding in some way for the viewer, not just for the producers of the work. And the makers that are on TikTok are making a lot of money too. So let's see if we can scroll through here and see if there's anything interesting. There is nothing for organic growth like TikTok, particularly when you have zero marketing budget, Sandy Thomas said. I scraped away for 9 months, getting one review here, two here. Then I started using TikTok and LinkedIn, and it all changed from there. Well, TikTok makes things go viral, and so does LinkedIn. For whatever reason, and I don't use LinkedIn either. I'm on it, but I don't use it. But I get a lot of activity in LinkedIn. It's very engaging, and it tells people that people are looking for you or checking you out. And that alone, if you are really engaged in LinkedIn, you can use it to drive business either to you as a consultant or as a, consultant. Or if you've got a site, every time you communicate with somebody, you're tagged as the owner of that site. They click the button, they go over to your site. So anywhere that there's a lot of really engaged people, some sites are so big that, it's a shot in the dark as to who is going to be engaged. But these sites like TikTok, man, video after video, if you pump it out, people will just keep on going over to your site. Well, if they did this video, then their site must be amazing. Yeah. So you have a content idea? So Brillian says, I have a content idea that I'm starting to work on for your video, for your YouTube and TikTok. See, I'm on TikTok too. But man, it's little snippets of news. I don't know if anybody would be interested in that kind of thing. But it works. So make it work. The next article is in the Hatch Ideas channel. It's about digital health ecosystem, the most important players, tech trends, in it propelling the digital transformation of the $3.7 trillion healthcare industry. This is probably focused on US, and this is insider intelligence. Some of their articles are entirely behind a paywall. But sometimes, like this one is just a little bit of a tease. There might be more information elsewhere. So it says the coronavirus pandemic expedited the digital transformation underway in healthcare, and patients and providers alike saw benefits to the new tech and virtual solutions, telehealth appointments, remote patient monitoring services, and amended insurance offerings were able to extend quality care to consumers at a quicker and less expensive rate. Ta-da! It's amazing what tech can do. Depending on where you are, depending on who you're working for, articles like this can drive home the point that you don't have to drive to some office just to sit down and do everything on a computer. And that gives you a better quality of work-life balance. And when it's applied to something like health and it's still effective, if the efficacy is still there, even in the health ecosystem, you kind of have to accept that maybe your business can benefit from allowing your employees to telework. We all have Zoom or some other video conferencing solution, Teams or whatever. I don't know what else. I mean, I've got like 6 on here. I think I even have a Cisco solution on here, which I've used twice. But at any rate, you turn on your computer at home anyway. You might as well use it for work. And instead of having to drive for an hour to get to work or more, or sometimes less, you can just go downstairs or walk into the next room and make your coffee and go back into your office or bedroom or wherever it is your computer is. And you're up and running a whole lot faster. And I can go to, I think the most meetings that I've ever gone to is 8 1-hour meetings in rapid succession. Just you hang up on one, you join another, you hang up on another, and do that 8 times. Dun, 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 and your day is done. Pretty amazing, right? Not a 45-minute meeting because you had to walk for 15 minutes and be late to your meeting on the other side of, the enterprise. And you don't have to worry about COVID as much. Well, anyway, as a result, insurers had to address hurdles inhibiting patients and doctors from using telemedicine, like copays and unclear reimbursement pathways. I still have to pay a copay even if it's a video telehealth meeting. Same everything, same copay, same whatever. Different countries have no copay and still use telemedicine. Pretty amazing, right? And let's continue on to the next article. That next article is over. Did I not post? I didn't post. Yeah, I didn't post that last link. Sorry about that. If you want to, there's the link to the telemedicine one. And here's the link to the one we're about to talk about, which is ghost kitchens. If you've never heard of a ghost kitchen, it's quite fascinating. And I've actually been to one where I ordered food from the ghost kitchen that had its own menu, even though it wasn't normally publicly accessible. Because of the pandemic, they spun up their own ghost kitchen menu while still producing food for other restaurants. Pretty neat. So this is ghost kitchens allow brands to boost their delivery capacity without the expense of a new outlet. Growth Kitchen operates 2 sites in London where brands rent their own facilities. Insider went behind the scenes at one of the ghost kitchens that is home to 10 brands. Ever wonder where your restaurant chain takeout was actually cooked? There's a chance that it's a ghost kitchen. And in this particular instance, it was Mexican food that I ordered, and it was great. And now I know where else they send their stuff to. So a little bit of conversation, and you find out stuff like that. And you find out what they have on the other menus that you don't necessarily know about. So yeah, pretty neat. Business Insider went over to a ghost kitchen. Grace Dean is the author, and they have photographs. And like all Business Insider articles, there's like a big old picture and then a little paragraph of whatever it is that they're talking about. In this case, they're talking about Growth Kitchen. And where is it? Yep, that's kind of how... So the ghost kitchen that I went to was in this industrial park. I don't even know what was on one side, but a carpeting company was on the other side. And you had to ring a bell, and then somebody opened the door so that you could come inside to pick up your order. They didn't actually come out to the car or anything like that. There was no pickup window either. It was really neat. And I had no idea because it doesn't look like anything. It doesn't look like a restaurant. So just like this. And they even describe it the same way. The exterior of the building is largely nondescript. You got some delivery people out in the back. They mash a button, and somebody hands them the food, and they drive away. Inside is space for drivers to sit while they wait for orders, as well as access to restrooms, phone chargers, water fountain. Yeah, it's all industrial, and you just have no idea. Oh, I want bow now. Oh my God. Anyway, it seems like whenever I do a stream or join a stream, somebody ends up talking about food and I get really hungry. I have some Thai food that I'm going to go eat after this, I suppose. I haven't eaten anything since, I think, breakfast. I typically only eat one meal a day, but today's been a really rough day, so I'm going to go do some. Tired of all of the stuff eating. Let's see. So whereas some other ghost kitchens, ghost facilities have brand share kitchens and even staff, Growth Kitchen is one for each outlet with staff hired directly by the chains. Shared kitchen space is not the future, says co-founder Matej Kuhn, who told Insider that. Yeah, I would suppose that things would get a little bit convoluted and messy and conflicted if you can ramp up individual kitchens for each brand. Then you can consolidate all of the menu within that one kitchen, and you don't have somebody tangling with some other menu and flow. One of the smartest things that you can do if you get into food service is figure out the workflow. Oh, really? So if you figure out the workflow, it's like fast food restaurants. They have it down to a kind of like a machine, right? Except that it's powered by human beings, unfortunately underpaid human beings. But the way that it all works is so that you are very, very efficient. And that's how you get fast food. And conventional restaurants don't normally have that same level of efficient flow, with fewer people bouncing back and forth from station to station, sometimes running into each other and stuff. But really good, efficient kitchens handle it quite well. So I don't have much to add to that because food service is one of the areas that I don't really consult in. It's kind of for all intents, you have to be in that industry to really be able to grasp everything. I could consult in other areas, but not helping the kitchen kind of operate. But other things definitely. So I have one more article, and that's about the Depp Heard trial. And I had been waiting. I threw this at the very end. I was very cognizant of this. Because I wanted to talk about it a little bit, and it's going to incite riot. I guarantee it. So just a warning to anybody out there that might be triggered about talking about what might be. Okay, so the context of the trial is that it's about defamation, but everybody is talking about it in the context of intimate partner violence or sexual violence. And so if you're triggered by that kind of a thing, if you are sensitive to that kind of a thing, then listen if you want to, and I won't obviously. If you want to talk about it, then you can come and talk to me. I'll be here tomorrow. I'm trying to lock this down again to the 1 o'clock time frame, but we had people over, so I couldn't do it today at 1 o'clock. But I am interested in having a conversation if you are interested in having a conversation. Again, I'm not interested in volatile, angry, vitriolic conversation. It just doesn't appeal to me. And I guess think of it in that context that I have an open door policy. You can come into my channel and you can talk to me. You can send me emails. You can come to the site, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. But think of it as kind of going into somebody's house. You don't go into somebody's house to have an argument. You have a discussion. So I'm open to talk about it, but I want to talk about this from a particular perspective. So But before I get into that, I want to talk to Brildane here for a moment, because you're not doing keto, but you're in ketosis. So sorry, my brain went dead for a moment there because I'm trying to figure out how that happened. So simply not eating carbs for a couple of days and you're heavily in ketosis already. Well, that'll do it, but I don't know how you did it so fast. I don't think that's like the standard operating procedure for ketosis. You must not consume carbs that much. You've been borderline for a while. I don't know. There's so much lag. That's frustrating for me. I like real-time conversation. I almost want to just throw up a window so that we can have real-time conversations through Zoom or Discord. Anyway. So let me talk about this, and you can throw any comment you want into chat. If you hear about this via the podcast or through YouTube, I am open for discussion about this, but my particular take on this might be a little bit different. I watched this trial while I was doing my day-to-day work. I had the trial in the background, kind of like listening to music, but it was a trial that was bouncing around the possibility of $50 or $100 million in compensation, and public outrage, depending on which direction it goes. Yeah, so yeah, it usually takes a while, because I do one meal a day, and so I don't eat for 20 hours, and then I eat for 4. Not totally. I don't eat from hour 1 to hour 4, right? Like just keep on scooping for 4 hours, but so within a 4-hour window, I eat all of the calories that I'm going to eat. And so I've looked at ketosis, keto diets and stuff like that. And I've never felt right eating more than once a day as I've gotten older. So just stay healthy, bro. Everybody wants you streaming, so take care of yourself. Okay. So I'm going to talk about this. So the article is in the continuity report. The continuity report is a show that I want to bring to Twitch and as a podcast in ohmTown that talks about movies. And because of that context, I saw this article and thought that it would be interesting. Yes, it's called intermittent fasting. So, and yeah, it's also referred to as OMAD. So this article, it says millions of people have watched Penny Ascaret. I didn't ever hear her last name, Judge, the chief judge of the Fairfax County Circuit Court. So if you've never even paid attention to this, you might find it interesting to go back and look at these because the videos, because they're on YouTube and they were recorded by a particular service, website, podcast, etc. And I don't remember, it was like the Law and Order podcast or something like that. Okay, so Brill, you're posting this in a public chat, so I'm just going to read it. And I know that you had said that you don't really care about it, but I'll read it anyway, because the first thing that came to mind was a comment. So interestingly enough, some of my gray hairs, I saw one and pulled it out. And it was gray for most of it, but the last 2 centimeters had color back. And if I were to do that, Brill, there would be a whistling sound like somebody was letting air out of a balloon, and my head would shrink a little bit. Okay, so you said, so you think your new job is allowing you to eat better and must have been mineral deficient. So your gray wasn't natural. Yeah, good. Maybe you're relaxing a little too. Unlike me, see? This is all... Anyway. What I like about the podcast is that nobody sees you turn gray or old. If you can hide it. So I hope that my podcast actually gets wildly popular, because then nobody sees me do this. But I love doing the stream, so I wish I could get more people, but when you bounce time around, you're just a dumbass. Don't bounce the time around, Marawatt. You just don't do that. Anyway, because people can't come and sit and hang out. Okay, so this is going to be a really long podcast and a really long show. So let's talk about... I won't make it a long one in terms of this discussion, but I've been just kind of chatting, so bear with me. I warned everybody at the beginning of my entire show that I practice this thing called associative thinking. So sometimes we get distracted and then we end up coming back, and everything is related. We're all connected. That's the philosophy here. At any rate, so why was the Depp Heard trial televised? Critics call it the single worst decision for sexual violence victims. So here's why I don't think that it was the worst decision, and in fact is the best decision, because, and let me click the link and we'll go over to Variety, and this article is written by Gene Mattis. And it has a picture right on the very front of Amber Heard, and Johnny Depp is on the other side. And so they start out basically saying millions of people have watched Penny Ascoret, the chief judge of the Fairfax County Circuit Court, as she presided over the defamation trial between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard for the last 6 weeks. And that is why it should have been televised. Ba-bum. It is a defamation trial. It is not a trial about sexual assault. Underlying this defamation trial is the fact that Johnny Depp believes that he is innocent. And he may very well be. And that there was what amounts to a concerted effort by Amber Heard to present Johnny Depp as a wife beater and her as a victim, even though even during the trial she said, I didn't want to be... Well, the way that she phrased it was that she didn't want to be a doormat, which is disconcerting because that seems to be the perception that I got, that's how she frames anybody that's a victim of intimate partner violence or domestic violence, right? So Brilla, you said you haven't actually heard anything about this trial. You knew it was happening, but you know nothing about it. Or you knew nothing about it. Yeah. So massive amount of following. All kinds of attorneys are watching it in real time and giving reactions and talking about it. There's so much that was said, it's almost impossible to summarize the totality of it in this show. But why I think that it was great for everybody involved on either side of the fence that this actually was broadcast. And also there's a side of me that says this shouldn't have been broadcast. But so Johnny Depp and Amber Heard got a divorce, and there is, during the trial, you basically find out that Amber Heard was very aware, at least that was my impression. So I have to preface, there's a lot of interpretation of what is seen in the videos, and if you miss anything, you might be off base a little bit. But the trial basically is about the fact that Amber Heard published an article after Johnny Depp lost a defamation suit in the UK. So when he lost that, what was the name of the magazine? It might be in here. Anyway, he lost a trial because they called him straight up a wife beater. And because of the rules of engagement there, he lost that trial. But here, there's a different, in the US, there's a different requirement. Well, she published something that basically said that she was a survivor of intimate partner violence or domestic violence, depending on how you want to frame it. It to me, it's largely the same thing, um, but um, the the nuts and bolts of her article was that she took the money from the divorce and donated it, and said that she was a survivor of domestic violence or intimate partner violence. And without naming Johnny Depp, there is nobody else on the radar that could be interpreted as being the one that perpetrated domestic violence on her. The implication was very clear. Everybody in the public understood that this article was related to Johnny Depp being a wife beater and Amber Heard being the target thereof. Well, when you look at all of the evidence that the public saw, but you're not in the room, so you're always just, it's beyond arm's length. I would have loved to be there. I'm a student of the law, but not an attorney. The When you look at it, you go, well, no. This trial is not about intimate partner violence or domestic violence or sexual assault or any of that. It's about somebody claiming that somebody else is. And the claim was enough to destroy his career. Now, others, one of the witnesses that the defense brought forward said, well, his career was on the decline to begin with. And well, that's not really true. Well, everybody seeing how this played out shows that the legal system really was, at least to me, completely blind to the wealth, completely blind to the emotional content of it. It was built off of facts. And whereas in domestic violence or intimate partner violence or sexual assault cases, typically there's little or no overt evidence other than things like post victimization photographs, and it's very straightforward, or there's absolutely nothing. It's just the claim, and the claim alone can destroy careers. And with the Me Too movement, that potential gained a lot of momentum where just the claim could ruin careers. So this came out, and Amber Heard brought photographs and recordings and all of this stuff about basically Johnny Depp being kind of a tool. But when you look at the context of when these things took place, you go, oh, I understand now why he was being a tool. Now, first off, there's many situations where both of them were being a tool to each other. And I say tool, but I want to say something more colorful. And to me, I've said this in a previous episode, they should never have stayed together, particularly if there was a little bit of abuse early on in the relationship. I don't know why anybody would stay like immediately. If somebody were to grab me in any violent way in a relationship, I would have ended that relationship in a heartbeat. I don't love anybody so much that I'm willing to be victimized by them, abused by them, either emotionally, psychologically or physically. It just doesn't work that way. I'm a human being, and there's no way I want somebody to abuse my affection in such a way, right? But they stayed, and they took pictures of him drunk and passed out or stoned and passed out, all of this stuff. And where he is violent, he was slamming cabinets, not a person. He was loud and angry, but the context of it was that he lost his mom. He was told that he lost $65 million, that people were taking advantage of him. all of this other context really does matter. And I even say that in my streams. Context matters. And I go so far as to say, even in things like terrorism, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And without you being aware of the context of this, without you being cognizant of the fact that there are people that have zero other options, then they lash out, right? There's something lost in the ability to communicate and try and resolve a problem. In this particular instance with this trial, Amber Heard, I think, knew that the relationship was coming to an end. Johnny Depp had told somebody that he was going to end the relationship, and she filed a TRO, a temporary restraining order, which was referred to as a no-notice TRO, while he was overseas. So when he came back, he couldn't come within any distance, and then she filed for a divorce, basically hamstringing him, and making him appear as if he was the one that was abusing her, et cetera, et cetera. And when you look at all of the evidence, in my interpretation, it was really her that was kind of, I think she was abusing him. And he was, for all intents, based on the evidence again that I saw, he would disappear. He would go somewhere, get away, instead of be overtly in an argument. He would just kind of step away, hide in a bathroom somewhere, whatever, just so that he can disengage, because he came from a family that was abusive like this. And so he wouldn't do stuff like that, but he would get loud and he would get angry and, smash something against the wall. And when you're a multimillionaire and you've got people that clean up after you, you don't necessarily care about cleaning up after throwing a glass against a wall. Somebody else will do it, right? I can't relate to that, because if I were to throw a glass, I'd have to go and clean it up. And nothing says smart move and, hey, don't worry about anger issues like throwing a glass and then going, oh God, now I got to go clean it up. So, it just doesn't happen with people that have control over they have coping skills, right? But you drunk, stoned, stupid, whatever, that's one thing. But she was saying that he sexually assaulted her with things, and photographs that were identical were assigned to 2 different years, saying that this has happened here and this happened here, but they're identical pictures, evidence of photo manipulation, stuff like that. And so all of this needed to be said so that the public sees that the court system was not predisposed to anybody's individual claim, and that um, they gave a way to discuss it publicly to reinstill in the public's perception that the legal system isn't already going to screw over any guy that is just claimed to have done X, Y, and Z. Now, I don't think that a case where there is ample evidence to show that there was sexual assault or harassment or anything would be publicized. If the victim is overtly known, either by the criminal justice system, right? Like in cases where there is child predators or rape or sexual assault where it's easily provable, then it's never televised. Criminal cases aren't televised in that way. It's kind of codified that you don't display the victim or make them do something publicly. But in this case was about defamation, not the assault. And through the trial, you walk away going, well, there's no real evidence of this, because there were no medical records that say that it happened. There were people around, yet nobody said, hey, this took place. And people came out of the woodwork saying, hey, she was the one that was, jealous and angry and that kind of stuff. So, but now there's a side that people picked. Which side are you going to be on? And I'm not one to pick a side. I want to see, my opinion is holistic. I want both sides. And in this particular case, I think both of them were poison pills to each other, and they should have just gone their separate ways after the divorce. Even though Johnny Depp paid $7 million tax free to Amber Heard, and she went marketing that she donated it, not just pledged it. She said that she went public and she said that she donated it to two agencies, um, and they never got anything more than $250,000 of that 7 million tax-free dollars. So she still has that 7 million tax-free dollars. Um, and there were claims that she cheated on Johnny Depp with Elon Musk and somebody else. I can't remember. And Johnny Depp caught them in the elevator. I mean, he knew for a fact that there was some infidelity there. At least he believed that there was infidelity there, and that's all that matters. If it was or wasn't, it's really hard to prove. But when you're canoodling in an elevator, you know, your husband probably is going to get a little bit suspicious of, hey, my wife is canoodling with some guy, Elon Musk of all people, while I'm overseas, and then saying, well, why are you upset? Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's a little infidelity in my relationship with you. So, and that came out in the case. So it's this discussion here. They go through the list. At the February 25th hearing, Bredoff argued that Heard is a victim of sexual assault and that therefore cameras shouldn't be allowed. And Azkarat did not accept the reading of the statute, finding that the rule does not apply to civil cases. I think it's a little bit less in my interpretation, but I'm not an attorney or a judge. It's less about the statute applying to civil cases and more about the fact that this is not a case about a sexual offense. This is about defamation of Johnny Depp, and that's why it was televised, because there was no perceived violation of any of these statutes, or the history of televised court cases. And I think that it did a really great job at showing the public that the legal system in this particular case, with this particular judge in this particular state, which is Virginia, um, doesn't have the legal system already biased simply by the claim of uh, sexual assault, without, because there really was no overt evidence of sexual assault, or sexual violence. It was claims. It was she said, and not even he said. He said he didn't do it. Um, and nobody else in his 53 or something like that years, or 58 years, nobody else came out of the woodwork to say, yes, he treated me poorly. Even he treated me poorly. Nobody has said that. Only her. And when you listen to the closing arguments of this, it is withering against the Amber Heard's defense. Basically all of these people, like 12 people, are all conspiring to defend Johnny Depp. That was the end result of the claim, in that it's her First Amendment rights to say these things, and that's just not how it works. Libel, slander, defamation, all of that is not First Amendment protected here in the States. In other places, it might be. You can say whatever you want to, as long as it doesn't run afoul of, a government or a politician. But our First Amendment allows us only certain things, and libel and slander are definitely not one of them. Defamation is definitely not one of them. So we'll see. The jury is out. They've gone into deliberation. That started Friday afternoon, and then on Tuesday, because Monday is a holiday here in the States, on Tuesday they deliberate again at 9 a.m., bright and shiny. and that's it. We'll find out about what this has on the other side of it. But I'm not even. Just want to make it clear at the end of this show that this was me talking about this wasn't even about the trial. It's really about the fact that it was televised. Some people are upset that it was televised. But I think that it actually did good for everybody, because what's going to come out of this on the other side is the jury going to believe one side or the other of the presentation of evidence that he was defamed as being a wife beater, or was the claim and the implication justified by this random assortment of statements and no evidence? That really, I mean, there were some things, but when you again peel back the layers of the onion and you actually get some context to it, it's really questionable evidence. And we can't just lash out. We have to deal with the evidence as it is, and not just go, well, it's a pretty blonde person, let's throw the other person, the accused, in jail for life and ruin their career simply because of the claim itself. But in some cases, the evidence is very profound. Most people that are victims of sexual violence, it's very telling. The spirit of the person is entirely broken. There's ample evidence of the abuse. The way that people cope with kind of relationship based abuse, it doesn't leave you as a happy-go-lucky person that you're going to go out and party with your girlfriends. You're not going to engage. I mean, there's a lot of damage that's done by an intimate partner that violates that relationship in such a profound way. So, and again, that's not really the purpose of me talking about this. It was entirely about the fact that this actually does a really good thing for solidifying the institution. Again, the context is that it's that courtroom, that judge in that state. Depending on where else you go, you might get somebody that's just wholeheartedly on one side or the other. And that's the real shame. If there's more light shed on cases like this, and cases in general, then maybe we would get a better understanding as a population that this stuff takes place all the time and it's left in the shadows. Every population, every society has a problem with sexual violence, intimate partner violence, domestic abuse. The problem is that there are people that think that they own another person and are willing to abuse. I don't think that's this case. But knowing about all of this, more people need to learn about this so that it doesn't happen one way or the other, either the false positives or the actual cases. So with that note, I know we're not ending on a very happy note. Maybe I should have thrown that at the beginning so that all of this is less negative at the end, but it's part of the news that is aggregated over at ohmTown, and I am holistic in the news that I present, and I also have a particular take on things. Again, I mentioned that I merged these three concepts: business, technology, and society together. Two of them were very obvious, even in that last situation. And the business aspect of it is that there are a lot of people that are making a lot of money off of that trial, because I've watched people gain thousands of followers because they're attorneys and they are reacting to the broadcast live over on YouTube, not here on Twitch. It didn't seem to be very popular here on Twitch, but over on YouTube, man, it was just gangbusters. They were thriving over on YouTube in regards to this trial, because they were streaming it to themselves and to their audience, and they had little windows next to the stream, and they were reacting to all of the arguments and evidence. And if I would have loved to have done that, but these were 8-hour a day trial days for 6 weeks. And I had other work that I had to do. So at any rate, it was interesting as an exercise in observing the legal processes. And I just got another associate's degree in paralegal, and I'm considering pursuing now a master's in law. So, yeah, it was a fun 6 weeks listening to all of this. So with that in mind, go over to ohmTown.com. You never know what you're going to see, and it might trigger you into coming over to twitch.tv/ohmTown. You can also go to youtube.com/ohmTown, or you can just do a search for ohmTown on Spotify or Google Play or Apple Podcasts. I try to be everywhere. Anyway, I always click that logo so that I can refresh the front page, and sometimes I break it. Brats. Wow, that's rude. I get called brat right at the very end. All of my personalities are brats? Is that why it was plural? No, I saw grats, but no, it's too late, Brildane. It's too late. I see how it is. All of my personalities combined is now just going to be referred to as brats. I get it. That's fine. It's fine. Where's the ban button? I don't have to take that. Well, thank you very much for coming to my chat. Thank you very much. If you download the podcast, I know that people are downloading the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. Come over and hang out with me over on Twitch. I would love to see you on Twitch, or at least see you type. Although I am looking for a co-host, and you can be right up there, or we can flip windows. I'll be in the top bunk, and you can be in the bottom bunk, and we can have a stream together. I'm always looking for a co-host for other shows as well as the ohmTown Daily News Show. This is kind of like a guilty pleasure for me, because my immediate circle of people don't know that I stream. But anyway, always remember, ohmTown is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always aggregating into these 6 categories and the 50 sub-channels underneath it. And that's it for today. Thank you very much. Probably one of my longer streams. No, not really. This has only been 2 hours, so not the longest. Anyway, thank you very much. Sorry for the dead air, folks. I will see you tomorrow, hopefully by 1 o'clock. Oh, you're banned, Brildane. You're banned.